one of our youngest guests will have one of the strongest messages. Who is she? You'll meet her coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Embassy Suites Resort at Kingston Plantation, home of the 13th annual American Heart Ball. We're focused on cardiovascular disease, and we're visiting with a Socastee High School senior, Ashlyn Clark.
Hi, how are
Good
you?
morning, Ashlyn.
Good to see you.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
This is very exciting to have an opportunity to discuss something very serious, not only to you, but to so many folks of all ages.
Right, it's the #1 killer in the nation.
The #1 killer, cardiovascular disease, and strokes
Yes, sir.
impact a ton of folks. I think it's
Right.
the #3 killer.
Number 3, exactly.
Right. Had you thought about cardiovascular disease and strokes at an early age, or is this something you...
No, definitely not. I mean, everyone sits back and says, that's not going to happen to me, when really, in women especially, it kills 1 out of every 2 women. So it's definitely something that everybody needs to take a step back and look at. It can happen to anyone.
And it really also has a big impact on children. A lot of folks
Right.
think about it just being an older person's disease, or even you now in this as a teenager.
Yes, sir.
But the #1 birth defect,
Right.
cardiovascular.
I was born with a heart defect, so they didn't find it until I was 17, but it affects children as well as adults.
This was something you were born with.
Right. And I was born with it. They found it when I was 17, and I went to the doctor, and he looked at my heart, and he heard a heart murmur, which they should have heard when I was a baby, but they didn't. And when he found it when I was 17, he sent me to get an echocardiogram. And when I had my echocardiogram, they found a tiny hole in my heart, as well as something called a canal defect, which is actually where the 4 chambers meet in your heart. I was missing that tissue right there that separates the 4 chambers.
The 4 chambers that meet in the heart.
Right.
And there's some tissue that connects them.
Yes, sir.
And you were missing the tissue all the way around?
I was missing the tissue, so my heart was almost like a wash machine. It went in a circle. It didn't go to each chamber the way it was supposed to.
But that's one of only 2 parts of the defect. You said the other one was an actual hole.
I had a hole in between 2 of the other chambers, the top chambers. I had a hole there, and then I also had another tiny hole at the bottom, in between the 2 bottom chambers. That one wasn't as significant as the other one.
And you said this is potentially something that folks notice at birth, or doctors will notice
Right.
early on, or their tests that doctors do normally?
Well, actually, some babies are born blue. Usually, when they have the kind of defect that I had, they're born blue. And I wasn't. I looked completely normal, so they didn't think anything was going on. And I started getting sick, and I was checked for mono several times when
you were younger?
When I was 16 and 17.
Oh, right.
And then my feet, when I was dancing and working out, they started turning blue. So those were just some of the signs that something was going on with my heart.
When you say blue, do you mean like your top there, that color blue, or what?
Yeah, exactly. Like
kidding.
almost purple, like somebody had beaten them with a hammer or something. It was pretty rough.
My Lord, but was there the sensitivity there in the feet? I mean, could you feel something, or was it just look?
My feet were very cold to the touch, but other than that, they didn't feel any different. And maybe sometimes they would fall asleep, but I thought that was just something everybody went through.
Yeah.
I was born with this, so I never really realized the way I felt was different from everyone else.
But the blueness wasn't occurring from birth to age 16. It was principally just 16 and 17.
Right. It only happened the 2 years before I had my surgery, so I guess that's when my heart really started taking a toll on my body.
Now, was this because you were in a lot of, you talked about dancing and working out?
Yes, sir.
Or is that something you've been doing for a long time?
I've actually taken dance for 14 years.
Oh, boy.
And I'm also a cheerleader, a varsity cheerleader at Socastee High School. I was on a competition squad, so I have a lot of activities, and I was working out 2-3 hours a day, 6-7 days a week. So
Boy.
it took a while for me to realize. I think the fact that I was so active kept me from being sicker, or more sick than I would have been.
Now, you talk about, are these pretty common in children that have congenital heart defects? I mean, are these the lack of the tissue there between the chambers and the heart, or even the hole in the heart? That's something you hear about
The holes in the heart are actually pretty common, but usually as the child grows, the hole fills in. But mine never filled in. So.
Really?
But I think it didn't fill in because it was making up for the other defects. And then on top of that, I also had a leaky mitral valve. So all of that together kind of
These
worked
terms
against
that
me.
you really knew nothing about a couple of years ago.
No, not at all. I would have never
heard any of them or
definitely
even thought
not.
about them. I mean, who hears them? You said a mitral valve or
mitral valve.
Mitral valve.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's could even spell it.
At 17 years old, you don't think you're gonna have a heart defect, you know. So I can sit around with my grandparents and talk about our heart problems. We can kind of like we're both part of the Zipper Club, so.
Oh yeah, wow, the Zipper Club. That's a serious thing, but probably tough for many folks to laugh about your age because they can't even imagine it. But
Right.
of all ages, that's a big deal. When you say the Zipper Club, for viewers who may not be familiar with that, that means
Everyone who has had open heart surgery has a scar on their chest, so they refer to that as the zipper. So
Yeah,
we're part of
yeah.
the Zipper Club.
Wow, golly. Now, I understand this is something that even though you went through extensive surgery and obviously one of the best surgeons in the country, this may not be entirely complete. Is that right?
I might have to have surgery again. They say it could be 2 years from now or 10 years from now, but my mitral valve is still leaking. He tried to repair it 3 times, and the outcome was the same each time. So in a couple years, I'll have to have my valve replaced.
So that'll require a full reopening and to get back in there to get. There's certain surgeries that can be done that don't require. I mean, that a cardiologist could do rather than seeing them.
It's amazing what they can do now. They can actually go in through your leg and repair a hole in your heart. But I'm not exactly sure about the valve. I think those always end up with open heart surgery.
Is that scary at all?
Well, at first, when I first had my surgery, I was a little scared. I was more worried about the scar, you know, as a 17-year-old, you know. I don't want to have a scar on my chest and look like my grandparents, but, you know. But now that I'm here and it's great. I cherish the scar because it's the reason I'm still here today.
Great words. You know, of course, we think about events like the Heart Ball, which will be here on February 17th, and in a night like that, trying to raise almost $500,000, you wonder about where those dollars go or how you can make a difference. But even just getting the word out is a big step. If you can't be an attendee at the Heart Ball that night, if you don't want to rent a tux or get a beautiful dress or spend $175 on a ticket, there's still volunteer needs. I understand you're helping out that night.
Yes, sir. I'll be there. It starts at 6 and it ends at 12. And there's also other ways besides going to the Heart Ball you can help raise money. There's the jump rope for the heart. There's also the Heart Walk.
Yeah.
And among many other things that you can get involved in. You can even just make donations if you would like to.
Oh, yeah, sure. That office phone number for viewers who aren't familiar, I think it's the 626-3939.
Yes, sir.
And I understand you're actually friends with Tammy Eves' daughter, I believe. Is that right? Have you all competed a little
Miss
bit?
Brooke Eves, yeah.
Brooke Eves, that's right.
We're best friends. We compete a little bit, but it's not really a competition between the two of us.
Are you all really good friends? You all know each other well?
We're best friends, yes,
Really?
sir.
I don't think I knew that. You're at Socastee High and she's at Myrtle Beach High.
Myrtle Beach, I know. We should be rivals, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And, of course, to think you all being close friends and Brooke's mother having been with the Heart Association now 17 years.
Right.
Since before you were born, actually, 17 and a half years. Had you ever thought in talking to Brooke and seeing Brooke active in all the Heart Balls that you'd be dealing with the Heart Association in another way?
No, I would have never thought of that. And when they found out that I had a heart defect and that I was going to have open heart surgery, they actually held a benefit to raise money because we were going to Texas to help pay for some of our needs, like flying to Texas and for a place for my parents to stay. And Miss Tammy Eves and Brooke, they helped me a lot. They brought many people, let people know about the benefit, and they just got the word out there. They've been a big help.
That's tremendous. That's tremendous. That's tremendous. Whether it's nights like the Heart Ball, as you say, or special events like that, folks working to fight heart disease and stroke, it happens really to everyone. It does not discriminate. No,
it does not. And it can happen to anybody. I mean, it happened to me, so.
Let's talk a little bit about when you found that out and determined you were going to have surgery, the steps leading up to the procedure, and, of course, how you all determined. I think you said your surgery was in Houston?
Right.
Why'd you have to travel so far?
Well, the procedure that needed to be done on my heart, my family, we were going to go to MUSC, but we also have family that lives in Houston, Texas. So we kind of knew the right people, and we went there, and I wanted to be with the best. And my doctor there, he was amazing. He had actually he's in remission from leukemia.
Really?
Right.
You're a cardiologist?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
And he, not only knowing the patient's point of view, but the doctor's, he was a big help. Like, just talking to him made me feel more comfortable. And, I mean, you want to feel comfortable with someone who's opening up your chest. So.
And, of course, and he's a pediatric cardiologist.
Yes, sir.
For someone like that who's principally working with really
children.
young kids, with children, yeah,
Right.
as you say, children, I mean, you're probably considerably older than anyone he deals with.
Right. He actually had done a surgery on a man who was 31. Any congenital heart defect has to be done by a pediatric cardiologist. So
Really?
when I'm 81 years old, I'll still have to see a pediatric cardiologist.
Wow, that's interesting. You'd think as the body matures, the doctors who are principally working
Right.
with children may be a little off in dealing with, but I guess the heart doesn't change that much.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, the chest doesn't change that much. I mean, you
Right.
still have to open it up in the same way.
Right.
Wow, so this was this a special surgery for that doctor, or was this something that he'd done? You said he'd done almost the same procedure on a 31-year-old?
Right. This is actually something he's done several times. That's why we felt so comfortable going to him.
Mm-hmm.
So he had done that surgery many times. He actually had 2 surgeries that day. One was on me, and then the other one was on a 4-year-old girl named Angel. And that was actually her 3rd surgery. They found her defect when she was born.
Wow. Let's walk viewers through that, just leading up to that and the procedure itself, the time involved. Obviously, as you said, if he's doing 2 in one day,
Right.
it must not be a full day thing. But what about, you surely don't remember it
Right.
itself, but what folks told you was going on? And
I was actually in surgery for 8 hours.
Wow.
They went in, they prepped me for surgery, they opened my chest, and he fixed my valve 3 times, along with fixing my hole and the defect that I had.
You say he fixed it 3 times during that same 8 hours?
Right, he was trying to repair it, but every time he repaired it, it came out with the same outcome, so it's still leaky, so he's going to have to go in and replace it. They always try to repair it before they replace it.
Right.